Hello, this is Riley E. Smith. I am a writer and fellow bibliophile. I realized recently that I had actually not had a library card and gone to the library since college, which has been a hot minute. It has been a hot minute since college. I had to remedy this. I now live in a place that has good public transportation, so it's easier to get to the library. So I actually went to both a Berkeley library and an Oakland library, and I got cards in both systems so that I am set. I can go to any library within 50 miles or something. I think that's what it is. I don't know how long miles are, but I have a lot of libraries to choose from. I did a library run at a Berkeley and an Oakland location, and I wanted to share with you guys what I got on my first library run. If it's not in a decade, it is close to in a decade. I guess it's not quite a decade. I'm not that old. Getting there. Aging is a privilege. All right, I want to start with the smaller haul, which I got from the Berkeley Library. I went into both libraries with a specific list of what I wanted to get, and I got basically none of that. I got whatever struck my fancy. So you're just gonna see what covers I thought were coolest looking and what concepts seemed interesting. I will say that I have been looking lately mostly for inspiration for the book I'm working on, which is the second in my action-packed superhero series, superheroine rather. So it's the second book in the Citadel series, and I wanted stuff with badass women heroines and potentially cool fight scenes, so I could remind myself, how the heck do you write action sequences, and get back into that, because I haven't been really writing action-packed stuff recently. I've been focusing on historical fiction and literary fiction, so getting back into the series, I wanted some inspo. And I'm always looking for short fiction. I think you can learn a lot from short stories, and they're fun because they take less So let's get into it. My first library haul in almost a decade. We're gonna start with the smaller group that I got from the Berkeley Library. So this book is called Between by Carrie Schaefer. So usually I kind of avoid books that look like this because it's okay, they pump these out, right? There's a pretty lady on the cover and wow, we have the same outfit on. Maybe this is really my dream. But speaking of dreams, this book just grabbed me because all her life, Vivian has rejected her mother's insane ramblings about dream worlds for concrete science and fact, until an emergency room patient ranting about dragons spontaneously combusts before her eyes. That sounds awesome. I love dragons, and also I have a book concept idea that sounded very similar to this, and one of the things I like to make sure I do is that if I have an idea or if I'm working on a book, I specifically seek out other books that I know have that similar concept so that I can see what's already been done and get inspired. So wanted to make sure I picked this up. I have not really got into it yet. I just read the first couple pages, and actually it seemed like pretty good writing. It didn't seem like necessarily one of those books that just get pumped out. So I was intrigued. So I'm excited. I'm excited to try it out. The next book I grabbed was Ghosts of Gotham by Craig Schaefer. I think it's funny that I grabbed two books with people with the last name Schaefer. I was obviously just drawn to the S section. I don't know why. I picked this up because it said Gotham, and I love Batman. And I know they just mean New York, right? Because Gotham is another term for that. I opened this up. I thought the cover seemed cool, and it seemed like it might be action-packed. I'm not sure I'm even gonna get to it. The Berkeley and Oakland library systems are lovely, and they have very flexible, generous rules about how long you can have a book and when you need to take it back. However, I do feel guilty keeping them for 10 years, so I'm not sure I'm gonna get to it. This one is probably my lower priority one. But it seemed pretty action-packed. His latest case is an obsession. Verify the authenticity of a lost Edgar Allan Poe manuscript circulating through New York City's literary underworld. What does that mean? So he debunks stuff, exposes supernatural frauds, swindlers, and charlatans. It seemed like it might have some action and some literary stuff, which are a great combination. Maybe some actual ghosts, maybe some actual ghosties. Seem fun, we'll see if I get to it. This next one I've already started and definitely goes into the category of I'm hoping it's going to be action-packed with a badass heroine so it can help me get inspired. I also grabbed this one because pause for dog to slurp. If I wait for there to be no dog background noises, I will never film a video ever. So just enjoy the dog ASMR. Hi, baby. And I'll probably film him later to put in the video. So stay tuned for a Pitbull cameo. Not that Pitbull, my Pitbull. I picked this up because I was actually looking for the first Game of Thrones because I've been very intrigued lately to find out in what ways the books differ from the series. Apparently, even like right out of the gate, there's some very, very big differences. So I was super interested to read about that. But they didn't have the first Game of Thrones, and I refuse to not start at the beginning. I'm gonna wait till I can find it, till it happens. But in the meantime, I thought it'd be fun to read some like epic fantasy. So this is The Wolf of Oren-yaro, K.L.S. Veloso or Vioso, I'm not sure. So this is, the series is called The Bitch Queen, which I thought definitely seemed like it would be a badass heroine who could inspire me for my series. And I was also just interested in just calling someone the Bitch Queen. Amazing. What do you have to do to earn that title? Especially like she hasn't been queen very long. So I'm super pumped. I started reading this already and it seems fine. I'm definitely eager to see if it's worth like how big the book is. But she already had like a bamboo sparring match with her snarky general. So that was great. So that's what I got from the Berkeley Library. Now let's talk about what I got from the Oakland Library. The Oakland Library that I went to was smaller, but it was obviously really well and lovingly curated. I really appreciated that. They didn't have a ton of room, but they had so many cool options, so many cool books. So I was super excited about how well curated it was. It really looked like the librarians put a ton of thought into what they were providing. They also had two really cool sections. One was Lucky Day, which is where they put the books that are like always on hold and super poppin' right now. And they're like, grab it while it's here, grab it before it's gone. So I grabbed one out of that section and I grabbed one out of the new books section because they had a pretty good selection of like brand new titles. Very exciting. So let's go into it. Let's talk about the books I got out of that section first. No One is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. Super cool cover. It's not huge, which is nice. I've been looking for shorter books for my Goodreads challenge. I actually already read this one. I got through it in like 3 days. Like I said, it's pretty short, it's pretty quick. The first half of the book, I was like, oh my God, we get it. You're chronically online. Like, Jesus Christ. And it was like pretty funny and it was pretty interesting, but I wasn't that into it. And then in the second half of the book, she broke my damn heart. I recommend it if you're not chronically online or almost chronically online. I would say sometimes I get there. There'll be periods of my life where I am there, but I'm never like always there. You know what I mean? I am close to chronically online. I am in danger of being chronically online. I am in danger. If you're not, you might not get all the references in this book, but she's a poet and her writing is beautiful. Most of the themes that are actually engaged within this book are pretty universal. So really recommend. You gotta get through the first half to get the meat out of the nut. to get what the second half has to offer. Broke my damn heart, bish. Broke my darn heart. So that was from the Lucky Day section. I guess it's really popping right now. The other one I'm also like halfway through. This one I got from the new section. It's Pony Boy by Elliot Duncan. This is about a trans man who is realizing that they are a trans man, and they realize it in Paris and Berlin, which is basically why I picked it up. I'm very interested in trans narratives, learning more about it, and I'm obsessed with Paris. If you've watched anything else I've done on this channel, you've probably noticed I will pick up almost any book if it has anything to do with Paris. So I really did enjoy the Paris section. And yeah, I think this is just incredibly well written, incredibly personal. It's very much literary fiction, but it feels so personal and beautiful that I feel really lucky to get to read it. Very much recommend, wholeheartedly. It's a poetic read, but it's not a challenging read necessarily. So go check it out if you can. Super illuminating if you are interested in learning more about aspects of the trans experience. Heartbreaking. There's a lot of trigger warnings going on in here, but also really beautiful. And I'm excited to see where we go. See where we go with it. Hopefully some good stuff. Hopefully we learn some lessons. And it's not all like sad. There's a lot of triumphant moments already and I'm only like halfway through. But I was very happy to pick this up. So the next one I picked up was the Best Short Stories 2022. These are the O. Henry Prize winners. I picked this up because I've been writing a lot of short stories lately and submitting them to literary magazines. So I kind of wanted to see like, okay, what is the industry saying are like the best stories right now. These are a little old at this point. If you won in 2022, if you won for this year, it's already a couple years old. So maybe I should have picked up one that was more current. Also, I picked up the one where like a ton of the stories are informed by Corona or were written like during Corona or inspired by Corona. And I'm just like the first two stories were pretty much like, wealthy family is doing pretty much fine in Corona, but not great. And I'm like, I don't care. I do not care. And then the third story was, of course, like my bitch mother, because that's a classic. That's a classic theme. That's a never-ending, for all times, classic literary theme, my bitch mother. But it was just like, it was so much my bitch mother that I just did not care. But I've read a little bit more, and of course, like any short story collection, there are winners and losers within it. My only thing is that this really makes me realize that there's like a style of writing nowadays that like, I don't know if it's just the Henry Prize is looking for like a specific style, but in terms of literary fiction, like all the stories so far have kind of felt like they were written in the same voice, which is a little disappointing because I'm pretty far through. Like there have been good stories. I'm not saying there haven't been good stories, but there's only really been one that didn't feel like it was like in the identical same kind of like stating things in this kind of clear, but like as if everything's important way. Like nothing's really poetic language. Nothing's really gritty language or real. It's just kind of like this very academic tone that like every one of these stories has had so far. So that's been a little disappointing. And in response to that, I'm not the only person who feels this way about American short story like literature right now. The other short story collection I got is Thrilling Tales. This is done by McSweeney's Press, the McSweeney publisher. McSweeney is awesome because they do a lot of experimental and very silly things. They publish a lot of funny stuff. They just have a very interesting literary magazine and they publish a bunch of like silly and cool stuff. So this is Thrilling Tales, edited by Michael Chabon. It's got a lot of big names who wrote original stories for it. You can see the cover is kind of this like pulp thing. And basically like they did this because they're tired of this same like style in short stories in contemporary American literature. The editor specifically says, like, imagine if the only acceptable genre of film was sentimental romance. It's like, yeah, that's great sometimes, but you don't want that to be the only thing that's available for you to watch. You want other genres. And he said that that has pretty much happened with short stories in the US, but instead of sentimental romance, it's introspective literary fiction, like introspective contemporary, usually depicting a certain social class and like a certain set of circumstances. I'm really excited to read this. Again, it's kind of twofold. It's giving me some like short story inspiration and examples. It's action and horror and mystery, these things that like used to be really normal and frequently read in the US until like 1950. And then for some reason, short stories just became like the same voice in the same constant like plotting literary fiction thing. So I'm very excited to read this and get some action and mystery and etc. Thrilling Tales. Get some inspo for my novel too. Next thing that I got is the drawing workbook by Jill Bays. I've been wanting to draw a little bit. Drawing is fun. It's not something I'm particularly good at, and that's great because it means I could just do it to relax. I think it's important for humans to have a creative outlet that they're not trying to monetize. For me, that's making elaborate stories out of my sandboxy style video games that I play, and potentially drawing a little bit. I think that all these drawing workbooks kind of go too fast. I think they're not understanding how absolute beginner I am starting from, but it was fun to do like the first exercise and try to trace my hand or whatever. We'll see how much I stick to that. I have ADHD, so a lot of things seem like really great, fun ideas, and then I just don't do them, which is why I did not buy the drawing book, lol. Another book that I got that I was super excited about and did in fact already enjoy, because it's pretty short, Samuel R. Delany, The Atheist in the Attic. Delany is a huge name in science fiction, also just a very important American author. I first came across Delany in his essay, Racism in Science Fiction, which is also in this, but I read that in a collection called Dark Matter, which is basically speculative fiction from the African diaspora. It was a super cool collection, like basically all of the stories were bangers, super recommend. Like that's so hard to do in a short story collection, like usually there's only a couple of really good ones and the rest are like meh, and then there's some that are like atrocious, but like the whole book was bangers, except like one novel excerpt went on too long for my taste. But like most of the book was awesome, and it had some essays, including Samuel R. Delany's essays on racism in science fiction, which I thought was really cool and insightful. Kind of talks about the history of science fiction and how there was this idea that he contended with that he was like the first Black sci-fi writer, and he's like, nope. So very cool. Some things about the history of science fiction, some things about like his own experiences, very interesting. Something that Isaac Asimov said to him that was not really okay, but was meant non-maliciously, but like still not okay. So very interesting. That's in this collection too, along with a really cool interview. But the biggest chunk of it is The Atheist in the Attic, which is a tense and vivid novella about the top secret meetings between the mathematical genius Leibniz, he like made calculators and was a philosopher and stuff, and the philosopher Spinoza, caught between the zombie-like horrors of the cannibalistic Dutch rampjaar. Like people in the countryside started to eat each other and also to like disembowel aristocrats in the city. It was like a wild time. And the brilliant Big Bang of the European Enlightenment. I think what was most interesting actually about The Atheist in the Attic was how the journal entries were done. He really does them very introspective kind of stream of consciousness, like, oh, I forgot to mention this other thing. So very interesting. It's interesting to consider for yourself, like, how does this actually fit in with the fact that he's considered a sci-fi writer? Is this science fiction? You know, fun little questions like that. But Delany is just a spectacular writer, so it was very interesting. And the last one that I grabbed, I had been meaning to get and try for a while. It's One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I didn't realize until I'd already grabbed it that this is the same author as Red, White, and Royal Blue, which I think is a book that I also have. But One Last Stop in particular seemed especially fun and interesting. This girl lives in New York, and while she's on the subway, she meets dazzling, charming, mysterious, impossible Jane. Jane with her rough edges and swoopy hair and soft smile, showing up in a leather jacket. Jane doesn't just look like an old school punk rocker. She's literally displaced in time from the 1970s. I'm very interested in punk, especially early punk. So getting to learn more about that culture in like a fun rom-com format, I am there. I am so there. So very excited. I already like read a little bit of the beginning part. As you can see, I tend to be reading like 6 books at a time, which makes libraries great. Also, libraries are helpful because they give you like there's a little more sense of a deadline, which makes me actually like focus and read more. So I'm very excited to keep visiting the library, but very excited to read this one and get those, you know, rom-com-y good feels, and also that like nostalgia, and learn more about punk rock in New York in the 70s, which seems super duper cool. So that was my library haul. Let me know which books you think seem the most interesting. Have you picked up anything from the library recently? If you do not have a library card, go get one. Go get one. They're free. And they're super easy to sign up for. The Oakland Library was like, you just have to be a California resident and you don't even really have to prove that. Just give us an address, like whatever address you want to give. Like, you don't really have to be a citizen. You don't have to have a home. Like, the library is like, we want people to read. It's amazing. I love it. Go get your library card, go check things out. Libraries have more than just books. If you're like, oh, I'm not a very big reader. Libraries have so much stuff. They have graphic novels and DVDs, etc. If you just watch this whole video, what am I doing? I'm preaching to the choir. But if you're like me and you do love books, but it's taken you a while, just bite the bullet and go check it out and get some books. Because it also, library funding is based on usage, I'm pretty sure. So you're helping your local library by stealing their books. I felt like such a thief, like it was such a thrill. I was like, oh my gosh, they're just letting me take these. No one's trying to stop me. So it's a very exciting day. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. I'll say goodbye and we'll do a cameo from the adorable Lyle.
This is my Lyle. He's a cute. Oh, are you annoyed at Mama today? Hello. Say bye, Lyle. F off, Mom. I'm very tired. All right, bye, Lyle.
Oh, also, like, if you like this video, subscribe and like it. And if you feel like you kind of like my taste in books or agree with some of the things that I said, or you're just looking for an action-packed superheroine novel or some cute short rom-coms, I got those too. We got those too. Check it out. Link in the description to all of my books that I write. Support indie authors. Yeah.